the Manhattan Project got together, and the notion was to build a bomb. All right, does anybody know what was called the Manhattan Project at all? The atomic bomb, yes, the atomic bomb. Does anyone know why it was called the Manhattan Project? Has anyone ever heard of the Manhattan Project? All right. You've heard of it? Well, what do you know about it? You know anything about it?
It probably was in New York.
It was in New York. That's it. The first meetings took place in Manhattan, in New York. After that, they come up with two sites. One of them is called Ornell, that stands for Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and it was a town right outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. And the other one was called Lanell, and that stands for Los Alamos National Laboratories in Los Alamos. All right. Now, the reason they picked Los Alamos is it was out in the desert, so they could do their testing and the whatnots. And the reason that they picked Oak Ridge was because it was near a river. All right. You may say, well, what's that got to do with anything? Well, I've already erased the uranium. But when you start purifying uranium, you have to have energy to do that. And matter of fact, some of the intelligence guys that's still out there now, they earn their money by trying to figure out how much energy different places are using with satellite communications. All right, all that's top secret, by the way. You mean, well, why do you care about that? Well, if you are on the west coast of Africa that is not very populated, and all of a sudden they're using enough energy to fuel a town of Manhattan, that's no good, because they're probably up to something, okay? And I just used that example because that was something that was out on the news. These terrorist cells are somewhere in the middle of Africa. Nobody can see them. They're out in the middle of nowhere, so let's build a bomb. Okay? And there's not really a lot of political interest in Africa, so why not go someplace where there's no political interest? All right? So, anyway, energy. And there were a lot of people that worked on these projects, like my grandmother did that. All right? My grandfather, he was in Pearl Harbor, and it got attacked. And he volunteered to go to Germany. Right? Imagine that. Who the hell would do that? All right. Pearl Harbor's attacked. He's in Coast Artillery, and he says, by the way, I want to go infantry Germany. Jesus, who's going to do that? So he did that, and she's there, and she started working for the federal government. And she was a secretary. They did bookkeeping, order paper, supplies, and whatnot. And then when she read in the paper they dropped the bomb, she realized that's what they were doing. All right. Because they had what was called a division of labor. And you wasn't allowed to talk to anybody else about what you were doing. So see, they just told this man, you do this job and keep your mouth shut about it, and then you do this job. Well, see, unless you did a lot of talking, you would not figure out how it was connected. Does that make sense to you? So imagine the shock. How would you feel about that? If you worked somewhere and you didn't know what they were doing, you thought you were just doing an honest living of ordering pencils, and all of a sudden you were on the bomb project, would that make you feel bad? Maybe. You don't know? Maybe not. All right. So, that's how all this stuff came about. And there's still thousands of people that work at Oak Ridge today. All right. They have a lot of research that goes on up there. Lots and lots of money goes into Oak Ridge. And who knows what they're into. Their biggest thing was nowadays was taking care of the Human Genome Project. Do you know that those were the people that finished it? Do you know why they would have it? Why would a bunch of physicists have interest in the Human Genome Project? Do you know? The Human Genome Project is your body, when you reproduce and so forth, you have chromosomes on it. And you can pass various genes off to your kids, like your eye color, your height, the way your nose looks, the way your hands are, all that. Well, the Human Genome Project is to map every single characteristic on every single chromosome. All right? And the people that were against it didn't like it because they thought, well, we don't want this lady here to want a basketball player. So basically they would take the eggs out of her body, take her husband's sperm, and sit there and design a child with blue eyes and blonde hair and 8 feet tall and muscles this big and all of this, you know. So that's why they didn't want him to do it. But they did it. It was done. So why did the physicists take it over instead of the biologists? Well, no one knew. But what's the big thing out now? The biological warfare. All right? And the idea is that if you know how the human genome is put together, all the details, that if something bad did happen, then maybe we would be able to correct it. Does that make sense to you? All right. Again, if you want something funded, what do? Put the word defense next to it, right? We got to defend against biological terror. And that way the federal government said, good, we'll fund it. Let's defend against that. That's a good idea. All right. But when people were out there talking about, well, what we need to do is we want to solve the human genome because we believe that would cure a lot of cancer. People said, oh, no, hell, that's not important. All right, we don't fund that. Well, it could really cure Alzheimer's disease. No, whatever. Oh, you mean it could save biological terror? Okay, we'll fund that. And that's exactly what happened. And Watson and Crick, who did it in 1953, when they heard about it, they were just disheartened. You know, I mean, I watched an interview and they just about started crying. They're like, I can't believe this, you know. But at any rate, that's the way life works. Does anybody have any questions about that? No? I know I went into more of a historical perspective, but why did I do that? Because all of that, if it wasn't for that, none of this chemistry stuff would be together. All right? Because you have to, I don't want to get into whether dropping the bomb was good or bad, but the work that went into it was good. And did you know that the 9 people who made the bomb, the 9 scientists, people like Bohr, Oppenheimer, all of these guys, Einstein, did you know they did not want to drop the bomb? Right? After they found out what it would do, they went and told the advisors. They said, let's not drop this bomb. We've outdid ourselves here. Like, we thought it was just going to go boom, but now this is going to like raise hell. So don't do that. And they didn't listen to them. And anyway, and which is a surprise because I think 7, don't quote me on that, but you know that 7 of the 9 men, do you know what their religion was and their history? They were Jews. So think about it. Think about how many Jews were laying there dead. Now you got 7 Jews making a bomb to stop that, right? Isn't that my favorite saying, stop that? You got 7 Jews that are trying to stop that, and all of a sudden they said, wait a minute, we don't do this. This is inhumane. All right, so that would tell you something. All right. And matter of fact, what they propose is to make a smaller bomb and like drop it out of an airplane and blow it up right away over Japan. And then our president, Roosevelt, called Japan and said, you see that? If you don't stop this crap, we're going to drop a real one. All right, that's what they proposed to do. But they said, no, we're just going to drop it. No plan. We're getting out of this war. And that's what happened. All right. Anyway, okay. So are we good with isotopes? Okay, well, that's true. Stop that. Right? You got to stop this killing. And if you know anybody that was ever in anything like that, if you could talk to them, that is one of my best advices for you before they die. Those are some of the best conversations you can have is with people that's been there. Some of the stories that my grandpa tells of Pearl Harbor and Germany is something that's neat. Anyway, okay, don't want to relive it, but it was neat. Okay, so here's what we got. If you was to take magnesium, okay, magnesium has 3 naturally occurring isotopes. Magnesium has an isotope that's called magnesium-24. Okay. It has an isotope called magnesium-25, and it has another isotope called magnesium-26. All right. Now, if you was to get down and have 100 little balls of magnesium, okay, little atoms of magnesium, and I know this is hypothetical. You got yourself 100 little balls there, and you sit there with a pair of microscopic tweezers, and you pick them out, and you count them. Statistically, you would have 78.99